What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Fit Fat Dad podcast, where it's two dads who are kind of fit, kind of fat, talking all things dad. So it's Graham here with you, and Blair is out saving the world, so he's not with us today. Very busy man, and it's his daughter's birthday, so we're giving him the night off. I'm bringing in a special guest who I always introduce with the most accolades ever. Coach Wife. Coach Wife, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's good to see you. You're much better looking than Blair. I mean,
Well, I'm glad you think so.
Personally, I'm going to put
Probably
that
a
out
good
there.
thing.
I'm sure Blair would probably agree. So that's okay. So today we'll tease up a little bit of what we're going to talk. A little bonus episode. We're going outside the norm. But since you're a coach and I'm married to a coach and also a former athlete, what greater way an episode to talk about wisdom that we've learned from coaches, life lessons. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, it's been a minute since we brought in game film, right? And looking at the game film. And Coach Wife, for those that are like, hey, we call sports balls and we don't really understand all the nuances from sports. I mean, this is a dad podcast. I hope that's not the case, but talk to me about game film and what it is. Like, for somebody who said, what is game film? How would you describe it?
Well, game film, the game film never lies. The film never lies. Like, you may think you did something, and then you can go back and look, and clearly you didn't do what you were supposed to do, or you did it completely the opposite of what you thought you did it. So game film is extremely important. And even you and I watching one of the SEC games last night, I think a shot went up, and I said, "Oh my God, the footwork! How did that go in? That footwork was crazy." And you were like, "What footwork?" I was watching the shot, so it's just kind of eyes were on the shot. So I think coaches have a different way of viewing game film, kind of looking for those different things. But I thought that was pretty funny last night.
So I had a coach in college, and I'm not going to name his name, but my former teammates who listen to this show, and you're going to know who he was. He'd always go, I'll just call him Coach Hey Now, because that's what he'd say. He'd be, hey now, what's going on? Hayden, Alabama. That's what he called me. Hey now, Alabama. That was my first introduction to game film. So I'd be in practice, and I was, in scout team All-American when I started, at least in my mind, thinking I'd do everything right. And we get back to practice, or we get after and we get into the film room, which is, I've come to know in college, the worst room that you could ever be in. But he'd be like, hey now, Lemmond, let's watch what you did here. And he'd play the tape, and he'd be like, now what did you do? I'd be like, well, Coach, I went into the gap and made the tackle. Absolutely not, Lemmond. That's a minus. That's a minus. What is that? What do we do first? Shoot your hands. Did you shoot your hands? No, Coach. Minus. What did you do? Or is that the gap you're supposed to fill? No, Coach. Minus. So I just, in my mind, game film was minus, because that's all I ever heard. I think I got one positive playing defensive line, and that's why I made the big switch to offensive line. Hallelujah for that. But I guess where I'm rambling at all of this is, it's been a minute since we visited the game film. Tell us what you think about the show as our number one listener, and what do we gotta approve there, Coach Wife? Eye in the sky never lies.
Golly, put me on the spot.
I did.
No, I enjoy listening to it. Obviously, I have a great relationship with you as my husband and Blair.
Best looking guy in the world.
Absolutely. So it's just really kind of fun to sit back and turn the radio on and listen to you guys for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't know.
We're crazy. We're learning on the fly. So I feel like we're getting we're past the minus and we're getting into the positive, which I never got back in college as a defensive lineman. So hallelujah to that. So Coach, I'm going to bring you along for the hashtag dad life moment. And our hashtag dad life moment of today is when dad has to call the repairman. So for all your dads listening out there, I want to be clear. I have all the high tech, DeWalt, yellow branded equipment in my garage. That's like the dad code. That's right. You can verify, honey.
Yes, you do.
Absolutely. So that's the dad code. So if any dad were to come into the garage, at least at eye check, I pass the test. Now, whether we get into skill level, totally different conversation. Um, but our hashtag dad life moment today is when dad has to call the repairman. And dad has had to call the repairman the last 2 weeks. And so first off, what was it, honey? What was the first repair?
The AC unit.
Yeah. So the AC unit went out. And then just recently today, new hot water heater. And I'm not even going to go into the fact of how much money we're into this. We'll just let people realize that. But so here's my question. The
Double what we thought it would be.
Double what we thought it would be.
Say that.
I think we paid college tuition. Like we paid Jax's first year at college. But so anyways, I'm curious. So and for those dads that are in this industry, whether it's HVAC repair, electrical service, plumbing, I'm just curious. When you go up to a house and you meet the guy or gal, but we're going to stick with dad, and he tells you what he needs done, at that point in time, do you realize like, hey, this guy has no idea what he's talking about? We're going to go back around and this dude is a total sucker and we're going to sell him whatever we can and we're going to explain to him whatever the problem is. I'm just curious. Like that's great salesmanship in my opinion. But I'm curious that, honey, do you think that we got suckered? I'm just curious. Like you give me the play-by-play on how you think I handled the situation of buying a new HVAC and a new water heater in less than 2 weeks and paying college tuition.
I mean, it was questionable. the areas that we kept running into where we can't do this because of this and this needs this because of that. But it was explained very well.
Very well. And there were pictures of evidence of like, oh, hey, look at your moldy AC unit that you're breathing in. But I started asking the question, like, was that my AC unit? Because I mean, like, let's face it, dads, are you tearing out the AC unit and pulling out the inside and looking at the inside of the blower? Maybe that's regular maintenance and I'm not doing it. But the picture they showed me looked like it was Village of the Mold Fest. You saw it. It was pretty bad.
I don't think I saw it.
Oh, you didn't?
Okay, I just heard about it. But yeah,
it was.
I guess
it
could
like
have been a picture.
27,000 colonies of mold. I mean, it was pretty bad. But I got to thinking, was that actually a picture
of ours or
somebody else?
I guess we could search the internet and.
Well, they travel with iPads these days, and they have whatever they're. They could have pulled up. This is the token. What I'm going to show you the inside of your blower, because he hook, line, and sinker me. Like I'm breathing that stuff in. Hey, sign me up. Here is here's college tuition. So I don't know. I just things are more expensive now. I don't know. But hashtag dad life moment when dad has to call the repairman. Dad's breaking out the wallet and get ready to pay for college tuition. So I'm interested with you dads out there. How do you handle that? Like, how do you handle that awkward conversation where they've already loaded out every part that you need and you've got a wife that's depending on you to come through and your pride is played a little bit. It's like, can I do this myself? First off, no, I can't install a HVAC unit myself. Like that's way out of my league. And oh, by the way, I can't run, electricity to a hot water heater, nor do I have the time to Google that on YouTube or look at that on YouTube. So just curious at your dads out there, like what level of where are you at before you call the repairman? Is it I rely on the expert or I'm going to get a little dirty before somebody hands me a $10,000 bill or $15,000 bill? this case, both. So.
Well, I think too, like, I don't know who taught us this, maybe moms and dads kind of growing up. And probably you since we've been married, have told me this before.
I'm a tightwad?
No, when you find yourself, in a store, getting ready to make a big purchase, and somebody tries to say, oh, you don't need that, you need this, and it ends up being double or triple kind of what you walked in there expecting to pay. And I think it probably was you took walk out walk out and do some research. Let's talk about it and let's figure it out. But like you said, when the whole crew is already in your house with all the equipment unloaded, and then you find out it's not what you thought it was.
What are you going to do? Are you going to put like, hey, sir, let me just Google this right quick and do some research while your whole crew is in our front yard? And oh, by the way, it's taken me 3 weeks to get here and we have no hot water or can flush the toilet. Like, I think Jack's put a nice little turd in the toilet today while I had the water come off.
The poop in your life.
The poop in your life. So that's our hashtag dad life moment. So interested to hear what you dads have to say out there, because I know even though you have that nicely DeWalt branded equipment of every power tool out there that you want to, that's my Tim the Toolman Taylor,
that's good.
You're going to get had. I think, I don't know if I got had. Maybe that's the going rate these days, but interested to hear what you have to say. So let's keep the train going. This is nice having you on a Friday evening. Got the candle lit. It's a little
date night.
A little date night on the podcast. But all right. So let's talk about wisdom from coaches and some of the life lessons that we've had. And before we go there, I want to take a moment to tee things up, because I know as a player and as a coach, just living with you, Coach, that so I'll start as a player perspective in college, because that's probably the first part that you're removed from your parents. You've got a little bit of exploring freedom. You're coming to your own. Well, at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I think that's probably the most, likely range of ages as a college student these days. You know it all. You're ready to express your freedom. You absolutely, the coaches are the disciplinarians in your life and parents, but you're kind of branching out, but you don't have the level of life experience that you're going to have at 35, 40, after you have a family, after you have other people that depend on you, after you've had to grind it through your professional career. So you kind of see coaches as they may be holding me back, or they don't know what they're talking about. And there's a lot of lessons that you may not realize at the time that you learn 15 years later. Oh, that's probably why coach is doing that. Oh, that's probably, at the time I didn't realize that. At the time I just thought coaches being hard. At the time I just thought coaches were picking on me and stuff. But one of the things that I was thinking about, and we'll get into it just to kind of tee it up, is so you only look at things from a player's perspective, my perspective, because we're all still selfish, but especially at that age. What we don't consider is that coaching is hard, period, and that there is pressure to win, duh. And wow, how much of a time commitment is coaching? There's something there. Not to mention time away from family. And then you put all of that. And then as a player, if coach isn't I think coach should spend all this time on me, developing me. And there's some coaches that's like, I need you to come in right away and play. And coaches may not have time to fully develop you. So they may have ways of challenging you that seems like, hey, coaches really doesn't care about me and he or she's given up on me. But that could actually be like, this is the way I know to motivate that person. I know because he or she's going to work that way. And the reality is they may just not have the time, even though they want to pour into you. So, I mean, especially if you get up the ladder with these days with social media, everybody wanted a press conference, all these things. And in your case, as a Division II coach, not only are you the coach, you're the financial advisor, you're the CFO, you're the logistics planner and operator, you're the everything. So I wanted to tee that up because that's something that took me 15, almost 20 years to understand. And when I share some of my lessons, I'm going to share it how I originally thought it. but then also bring it back into reality of like, this is probably where I think coach was at the time, but I didn't realize that. So I know you've experienced some things like that, both as a player and coach. So walk me through what's some of like some life lessons, some wisdom that you've learned from your coaches or being a coach that you've seen players come that is, that we use as parents or that you use in your daily life. Like, talk me through that.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. As college kids, especially college freshmen coming in, their first year, they're away from their parents. It's a college schedule is much different than, a high school schedule on the academic level and on the athletics level. And you kind of have to grow up real quick and figure out time management is a huge factor. And, once they realize kind of their class load and we start into weights and pickup and skill workouts, that's all before we get into full practice. I mean, we start that in August. Now, once you kind of get into the full scheme of things, and now it's like, all right, your shot percentage is not where we need it. We need you to get up this amount of shots, knock down this amount of shots every single week to get you ready for the next game or kind of continue down the season. And, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Well, you have to realize that you have to make time. If a coach, like you say, not necessarily getting in there one-on-one and maybe doing some things, but hey, this is what I need you to work on outside of practice. And if somebody's asking you to do that, they want you ready to play. It's not like, oh, just give them something else for them to do to take up their time. And we kind of installed that the last 2 seasons here with our group, and it's made a huge payoff kind of in the way that we've played. And I had one kid this year that as a nursing major, and yes, I mean, her time is critical. She's not only getting up and doing weights with us at 6 a.m, but, going through practice. And now she's got clinical from 8 to 4 and, kind of different things. And those were kind of some things that we asked of her. And we saw her shooting percentage go from 17% to 45%.
Wow.
Throughout the course of the season. She gained more confidence and our team had more confidence and kind of setting her up for different things like that. So it's not just busy work,
Mm-hmm.
like we, as coaches, we sit game film. You go back to game film. We sit in the office almost all day watching back practice, watching back film, analyzing each and every individual player and kind of pinpoint, all right, this is what needs to be done. Whether we can get on the court with you in a one-on-one setting or not, we pick out those things that need to be done. And it's important if you want success.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, I had to minus. But so that's such a good point. So, all right, let's back up to you as a player. What Talk me through some of like the challenges that you had to overcome or some advice that a coach gave you, that coach challenged you that like one, what was that advice or situation and what did you learn from that?
I started playing basketball when I was in 7th grade. Really just because my mom wouldn't let me play baseball with the boys anymore. I wanted to upgrade and go to Babe Ruth because I was really good at baseball and loved baseball. But mom was like, no, this is where we step out of the boys league. So that's really kind of how I got into basketball, which is kind of funny. And I was extremely awkward. My feet were much larger, in proportion to the rest of my body, gangly little nerd, basically. But I guess my high school coach or my 7th grade coach immediately kind of saw something in me,
Right.
saw something through the awkward clumsiness
Of the Labrador feet.
Yeah. And told me if I could he handed me a basketball after practice one day, just a few practices in. He said, if you can figure out what to do with this thing, it'll take you around the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this old man talking about? Like, he's crazy. And now here I am. I've, played college basketball, and now I'm in I think I just finished up my 17th year as a college basketball coach, finished up my 9th as a head coach. And, maybe not been around the world, but definitely been around the country and been able to experience a lot of things.
Well, so was basketball on your radar prior to that conversation, or was it just baseball all the way? And this coach said, uh, "That's good, but try this." Like, were you pursuing basketball at all, or was it not on
That's
the
the
radar?
first time I'd ever really bounced a basketball other than in the backyard, with cousins or something, just kind of playing around.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. Never really had much of an interest, but I do remember after a couple, I know it was probably when I was younger. I think when I was in the fourth grade, I think maybe fourth or fifth grade was like the first time I'd ever had a TV in my room. And it was just one of those big box TVs that you only get like 2 or 3 channels back then.
yeah.
And I remember watching the NBA game for some reason. I was sitting on my daybed and the NBA game was on. It was like Michael Jordan and I think maybe Shaquille O'Neal, and they put up like 100 and the score was like 120 to 132 or something. And I was just kind of mesmerized by it. But just really had never had the opportunity to play basketball because there wasn't really any youth leagues in our small town growing up.
And then you quickly realize that they don't play defense in NBA, and you've got to.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level. But
But that's a really good. Okay, so somebody obviously saw that, and you said, "Hey, here's a basketball. You can change the world." And I look at where you've been, and like taking teams to the NCAA tournament, and we talked about taking Sanford to play Florida State. I remember some of the great games at Sanford with some of the great players that you had, and were coaching there that made great plays. That was just exciting. And then you guys got to play Duke at Nashville and Vanderbilt. Like, those are great experiences. And I'm looking at a picture of you and Pat Summitt, right? Like the goat, right? Let's call her the goat. There's some goats out there. I mean, there's some goats, but you got to meet Pat Summitt. Like, holy smokes, because somebody spoke that life into you and said, "Hey, here's a ball.
yeah.
Pick it up."
It's funny you mentioned that picture up there with Pat Summitt. I worked her basketball camps in Knoxville. I think 2 weeks in a row or 3 weeks. I mean, we lived in the dorms and we worked camp every single day with these kids. And her camps were enormous. You talk about like 500 kids every single day. So me and one of my roommates from college went up there and stayed in the dorms and worked camps. And I was not fully cleared from one of my knee surgeries. So I was not supposed to be playing or really doing anything, which was really frustrating because all the camp staff got to play pickup after camp. Get to play pickup with the Lady Vols,
Yeah.
like with Carol Lawson and these different people, and who's the head coach at Duke now. But I'm like, so I would get to watch it. But I remember one day Pat came in and she was talking about a layup drill. She was talking about the importance of just simple fundamentals to these kids. And they're just, wide eyed. And so then she grabs the camp staff and says, get out here. We're going to do a layup drill. And I didn't get out there because I barely just kind of got back to where I was comfortable walking and kind of jogging a little bit. And she goes, AJ, get out there. Yes, ma'am. Here I come. Just kind of jumped up and ran right in. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if I miss a layup in front of Pat Summitt, oh my God, I can't.
Pressure's on.
Bum knee or not. Luckily I did make it, but that was a really, really cool experience to get to kind of be around her and her program for a few weeks.
And you've been at recruiting tournaments. You've seen Gino Auriemma.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen him, met him. Just exciting moment for me as a fit fat dad, and your husband is when you guys played the University of Alabama. I said that correctly, and went down there, and we got to go to Coleman Coliseum, and me and Jax got to sit there and watch you guys play Alabama. Like, that was an amazing experience just to see that. So that's cool that somebody said that to you, and it has. And who knows? I mean, maybe we will get to go around the world with that basketball. You never know. So for me, and so what do you say? It's funny because we were talking about this podcast, and every now and then you'd be like, you'll look at me because I'll say something, you'll go, was that a little toot toot? Like, I'm making the motion of the truck driver, honk honk, the little toot toot, toot your own horn type of stuff. So I'm going to get borderline tooting my own horn, but I'm setting it up because couldn't have done it without the coaches in my life. So I think probably the greatest lesson that I've learned through my coaches, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And I mean unintentionally, like they just may have not had the time to develop me, and they're like, in my mind, they've given up on me. But at Sanford, I went from coming in as a D lineman and a minus, 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 like coming in as my opportunity as a sophomore, slated to start the first game of my career at Sanford as a defensive tackle, and got bumped down to third string like the day before kickoff because I had a bad practice. Like that wrecked me. And then 2 games after that, having a conversation where it's like, maybe you should consider Division 2 instead of at the FCS level. And that was a humbling moment for me. But like, so I've gone from that moment in time where it was, I could have said, all right, yeah, I'm not good enough. But I had a coach in the interim who saw something on the other side of me, and like the other side of the ball. Like I came in as the defensive side because I thought defense was really cool. When I played high school, we played it. Everybody ran the wing tee. And for those of you that don't know what the wing tee is, it's basically they pull the guards. And if I have to explain what pulling guards is, then you really don't watch football, period. And I'm not going to go down to that. But the guards, when they pull, if you follow those, they'll take you to the ball and you can make a tackle. So in high school, I was making like 20, 25 tackles. And that's no exaggeration, playing zero technique, following the guards, and making a tackle in the backfield. So my stats look spectacular, but I never learned proper technique. I never learned what the coaches, at that point, if I'm doing that in high school and making plays, it didn't matter. But in college, as you know, you can't wing it. Everybody is spectacular, especially at the Division 1 level, and you can't wing it. And I wasn't doing what I was coached, doing what I thought was best. Every now and then I make a play, but majority of the time I'd probably hurt the team. So I went from that moment of you should probably consider something else, in my mind, giving up on you, to I had a coach, and I know some of my teammates are going to laugh at this. They're probably, but Doug Meacham, who went on to be, he coached at TCU. I think he was a Bulls candidate for assistant coach of the year, and then went on to Kansas. He actually moved me over to center because he saw something in me. And then Coach Rudolph came in as my offensive line coach. And like you said, he's like, to be where I need you to be, I need you to do all this stuff. And it was like a notebook of 10,000 drills that he probably thought I would not do. But I did every single one of them to the T every day because he said that's what I needed to do. And at center, we played shotgun, which is snapping back to the quarterback. And that consisted of, he told me I had to snap left-handed. He told me I had to dip the ball in water. He told me I had to dip the ball in mud. He told me I had to get out there in cold weather. He needed 1,000 snaps from me a day. He needed me to, I was running drills, and we call them mirror drills, where as an offensive lineman, you try to stay between that person. I would run those with like defensive backs who could run like 4.40s. And here's the like fat Graham trying to keep up with it, but that made me better. And the lesson that I learned in all of that is, and this is an overquoted lesson, but it is the lesson, is that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? Like talent that works hard is going to be hard to beat, but there's a lot of talent out there, and that doesn't want to work hard. So I went from almost being cut to, by my senior year, playing a new position, being captain, being all conference, being the National Football Foundation and College Football Hall of Fame All-Star team, academic All-American. I never would have expected to achieve any of that stuff. I never would have, but I did everything that the coaches asked me to do and more because they saw that, but they knew that there was a gap between physically where I was and talent. But they knew that, to me, the most important muscle in our entire body is our heart, and that can't be measured. They knew I had that, and they played into that. And those were things that I think, as a coach, whether I may be giving them too much credit. I don't think I am, but I think they saw that in me, and I think they said, I can over challenge this cat, and he's gonna. If he does it, he'll do exactly what I wanted to. And I've used that my entire life. Like, that's just been a life lesson for me. So that's a little bit of a toot toot, but I had to prove a point like that. That was going from being cut to, like, it paid off. But a lot of people aren't willing to do the work.
Yeah. Now, maybe a little bit of a toot toot, but I think a well deserved toot toot. Because that's phenomenal, kind of the challenge that you took on and kind of how it paid off for you. I went through kind of a similar experience. As coaches, you're always trying to you can't coach everybody the same. You can't have player meetings with everybody the same, because you got to, and it's a carousel trying to figure out each year how you can push these kids and how you can motivate these kids, because they're not all pushed the same. They're not all motivated the same. They're not going to react to, the same coaching styles the same way. So, I mean, that in itself is a full-time job trying to figure that out. But, I went through basically kind of a similar experience. Well, I had a ton of injuries kind of my first couple of years of college. I tore my ACL the night before my very first college game, which was going to be at the University of Alabama. So just heartbroken.
Yeah.
As an 18-year-old kid getting ready to live out her dream. And then, work to get back, and all the rehab and all the training, and work to get back, and tore my other one 7 games into the next season. So it's like, what is happening? So year 3 for me was a very difficult time. I put in the rehab, I put in the work to try to get back, but golly, now you're coming off 2 bum knees, trying to play college basketball really for kind of the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't the player that I used to be, and I really had not had time to really develop kind of into a better player, I guess you would say. So I remember going into year 4, I was challenged with, all right, I did have my redshirt year, but because of my injuries. But going into year 4, I was told that my 5th year would not be paid for, because they were going to need that scholarship for somebody else, somebody that can move, I guess, somebody that can move and they could count to be on the court. And asked me if I would come back for my 5th year, even if it wasn't being paid for. And without any single hesitation in my mind, I said, absolutely. I will be back. I mean, this is my heart. This team is my family. That's my sisters. This is what I came to do. And I don't know, just kind of going in year 4, you talk about coaches that see something in you, and I don't know, maybe see something that somebody else doesn't see. I did have a coach like that. Coach Cook was my assistant coach my last 2 years at Sanford. And, coming off those ACL injuries, and, like, again, a step slower, not where I wanted to be, but I think she saw kind of what Coach Rudolph and them saw in you. Like, she's got the heart. She's got the heart. She's going to give us everything that she's got. So I remember, and I would sit I think I would sit right between the head coach and her on the bench every single game, just waiting for my opportunity. Couldn't wait for my opportunity. And our head coach would be like, God, we can't get a rebound. God, we can't score around the rim. God, we can't do this. And I just remember Coach Cook being, put AJ in, put AJ in, put AJ in. And then somebody unfortunately ended up kind of getting injured or sidelined for a couple of games. And I got an opportunity. And my first kind of big opportunity, I had a double-double, and eventually kind of earned my scholarship back. But it's just kind of being challenged, and I don't know, just those coaches that kind of see that in you and kind of nudge you in the right direction. But even hearing that maybe my 5th year wouldn't be paid for, or that it wasn't going to be paid for. I knew coming into year 4 that it couldn't take me 3 weeks to pass the conditioning test. I needed to pass it on day one.
Yeah.
It couldn't take me this amount of time to reach a goal that they were asking us to reach, in individual skill workouts or whatnot. So I did come in year 4 and I passed that conditioning test day one. I mean, like you said, I needed that little bit of a nudge, I think.
I think that's a lesson in itself that players and kids, and this is a parenting situation too, that it's not equal, right? You're gonna have studs. Like there's gonna be 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars. I mean, there's never any 5 stars in the teams that I play, but you get what I'm saying. There's people that are always going to be better, and they're always going to be on that coach's eyes. Like and for those that aren't on that level, and they don't have that level of physical, they're not the tallest, or they just weren't blessed with that. It's not level. You have to work hard, and the standards are different for you. Like you got to prove that you can whip those. Like your metrics got to come out better, even though your physical metrics may not come out better. I can't show up here and be middle of the pack. I got to be top of the pack, because that's the only way I'm going to be even in consideration, right? And I think that's a lot. So you said something that was very interesting. You said your first 2 years tore your ACLs. You had to figure out a new identity as a player. Talk to me about that, because obviously having 2 torn knees, you lose mobility. You're probably in a mental state that is, I've got to be careful. I can't be as aggressive because I don't want to have to do this all again of all the work that I put in. So what was that like? Like, talk to me through the mental challenge that you had to overcome, because I can imagine that would be, and I'll self toot your own horn, 3-4 time state champion in basketball, all time leading scorer at your school in high school. You're the you're the bee's knees, right? Like you're the stud, and now you're not, and it's not your fault. So how did you have to do that? One.
Well, it was very frustrating. But I think I learned, or I gained a completely different appreciation for the game, not being able to play it for basically 2 full years. And I don't know. I think that's probably kind of where my coaching career started without me even understanding it. I never really thought I was going to go into the college coaching world, but just the love and the appreciation, the respect that I gained having to be sidelined for those 2 years. And really in year 3, even though I was practicing, I wasn't playing. So I remember the girls would play pickup. My teammates would play pickup, and I'm just trying to get involved in any way that I can instead of just sitting on the sideline and watching them. So I would start pacing up and down the sideline and doing like radio commentary. All right, Clarissa Clark, number 24, she's got the ball. She's on the right wing. She's driving in the lane. And the team loved that. That I think it's very hard being sidelined and being injured and being completely feel like you're separated from your team a little bit. But that was kind of a fun way that I got to kind of get back into it even before I was into it. But what was the other question?
Well, so I think in that moment there, like the most important thing is probably, and we'll get back to being a young 20-year-old, whatever it is, you didn't realize at the time that the plan and all that you took in, being on the bench, being hurt, you learned so much. And that learning, while not being able to be put out on the court as a player, translated into how long have you been a coach now?
17 years.
17 years, and conference championships, tickets to the big dance, and at Sanford and at UAH, and all of these. I mean, hey, providing for your family, doing what you love. I don't think you've ever really worked a day in your life. I mean, I've seen some days that were pretty tough, but I mean, but you got what I'm saying. Like, I don't think you would have realized that as a player at that time.
No, I don't think I realized it at all. I mean, you're the first ACL I tore year one. I mean, I kind of hit depression mode. I mean, I lost a ton of weight. I had never had a single injury that kept me out of a game, much less a season, much less a year long recovery. So that was kind of hard to take in a little bit. But this, the second year, I was like, all right, well, I've already done this once. I know it's going to be hard, but there's no way around it. So just kind of having a completely different mindset kind of helped me through that. And, I've had several players as an assistant coach and as a head coach now have to go through that. And me kind of having that experience, able to kind of talk them through some different things. And like, mindset is everything about this. We can't do anything about the injury.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take us 9 to 12 months to get you back, but we can't do anything about that. So, because that was kind of one of my darkest places. And I didn't realize that as an 18-year-old kid. I was just distraught that I couldn't play the game that I loved. And it really kind of held me back a little bit in my return to play in that first one.
Yeah. But long term, it paid off, right?
Yeah.
You've made a career out of it.
Yeah.
I'll go back to mine. Like, when I almost got cut as a defensive tackle, part of that, I tore my ACL in the spring. And when did you first meet me? What did I have?
You were
on my
wearing an
leg?
ACL brace. I guess that's what drew me to you.
You could relate, right?
Mhm.
And we talked about our ACL, and little did we know that that was the spark that 5 years later would ignite a marriage that has been, awesome. And, it's as it is. So it's just the purpose that's designed. I don't think that we see as a time as a king of the world college kid because we know everything. But obviously, looking back, we probably could have learned a lot more if we would have paid attention. But I think that's a valuable lesson there too. Um, just a lot of wisdom that coaches provide that I don't think we're at the maturity to receive it. But I think it sticks with us, and I know it stuck with me, and some of the lessons I didn't receive until this year. Like, let's put it out there. Like, it wasn't yesterday I was playing. I mean, we're almost going on 2 decades. That's pretty scary.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned you didn't even realize something until this year, because it does kind of take a long time to kind of look back and just go through more experiences and kind of realize what the people that were placed in your life were trying to do for you.
Yep.
And we kind of have blinders on at times, and like you said, we only have that one perspective, my perspective, especially as an 18, 20-year-old kid. But I get text or phone calls or emails, 5, 6, 7 years later after somebody's graduated, and just kind of an appreciation. Like, so it's delayed gratitude a lot of times in
Yeah.
coaching, because, you're not always the most popular person in the room or on the court or in those meetings. Because you do, you have to have some uncomfortable conversations, and some of that is, trying to push people to be better because you see what they can do. But a lot of times it's either never recognized or it's recognized many years down the road.
Yeah. Well, I just know that, at least in college, and I'm going to go ahead and far as say, even through high school, every coach I had was a dad, right? And now, me being a dad, I realize how much time I don't get to spend with my children. And that's precious time. And no offense, people that I work with, as from a coach's perspective, players, my family is the most important thing, and I don't get enough time with them. And I can't wait to get back. And I never considered that as a player, that I was just always like, well, he doesn't have time for me. He wrote me off. I never looked at it like, holy smokes, he's under a lot of pressure. He's working. I don't think people realize that coaches in season work like 80 hours a week, maybe 90, maybe 100. Nick Saban talks about the 100-hour work week as the norm, and he loves it. I don't love it as a coach's husband, but you never consider that as a player because you don't understand what being a parent's all about, and how could you? But I think now, and that goes into lessons now, like when coaches will do some of that those are some of the things I like. Man, he saw what he had. He's got a career. He's got to put food on the table for his family. Where I was in that moment, I wouldn't, he's not going to put his name on the line. He's not going to be willing to front for me to like say, hey, yeah, this guy's he's going to be first string, knowing that it probably wouldn't work out well and his career and family would be on the line. I absolutely understand that now. I didn't understand that as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. And I think a lot of kids miss that. And it's going to be until they get families that they'll probably understand, and they may not. I think a coach would be okay, and I think you would be okay, even though it's hard in this day of social media when somebody can put you on blast. If you're that, and I look at it like the dartboard where they hang your picture and they throw darts at you and try to hit you as the bullseye. If you're their dartboard, but that's the motivation to make them into a better person and overcome challenges and adversity, I think you're going to be okay with that, even though you'll probably never have a personal relationship. Like, you're going to know deep down, like, they're a better person because of, like, they had to use you as, like, here, I got to use this as motivation to get where I'm at. We've gone really long today, actually longest episode, but it's been great talking to you, Coach Wife, and get all that stuff out. And I think we shared a lot of valuable lessons that we've learned as players and coaches. So next time we're going to bring back big grizzly Blair, because everybody loves a little grizzly Blair. And Coach, pleasure having you.
Well, thanks for having me. This was fun.
It's not hard just to walk down the hallway and pull you into the office and put you on the podcast and give our loyal listeners what they want, a podcast each week, which is hard to maintain, but we got it. But we appreciate everybody listening. And until next time, thank you for listening to the Fit Fat Dad podcast. Out.